Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV in association with Man versus Fat Football. It is Thursday evening, which means it's match preview time, and I'm happy to say that tonight I'm joined by Oxford United fan Joe. I'll put his Twitter details in the description at the end of this video so you can go and check out his content and his socials once you finish watching the preview. But first of all, thank you, Joe, for coming on. Appreciate taking the time out of your evening.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Good to be on.
Good stuff. No fixture for Oxford in the week. Gills, of course, had that rearranged game with Charlton Athletic on Tuesday evening. It finished in a 1-1 draw in Kent. To be quite frank, Gills were absolutely appalling first half. Never got out of, I'll say second gear, that's probably generous. They spent most of the first half in reverse. Didn't get close to Charlton, could have been 2 or 3 down. But credit to Steve Evans, made a couple of changes at the break, changed the system. We were absolutely superb. Second period, pinned Charlton back. Scored a good equaliser, albeit through an own goal. Should have had a penalty. One of the most blatant handballs I've seen in a long, long time. Unfortunately, we're talking about poor officials in League One again, but that just seems to be the norm. But yeah, probably on the balance of the whole game, a draw was just about a fair result. Jamie Cumming, our goalkeeper, made a couple of good saves at one each. And we hit the post as well. So a decent, entertaining evening under the lights. What was a relatively full Priestfield, which was quite nice. But that's enough about Tuesday. Joe doesn't want to hear about Charlton Athletic. He wants to talk about Oxford United. So we're going to get straight into things. There is enough form now, Joe, to do last 6. And over your last half a dozen, it's a pair of wins, a single draw and 3 defeats, looking at the fixtures. So 7 points from 18 available for the Yellows. Gills, it's 1 point less over that period. It's a single win, it's 3 draws and 2 defeats. So half a dozen points accrued over the last half a dozen games. Gills away, patchy at best at the moment. It's 2 draws and 2 losses on the road, so still waiting for that elusive first away win of the season in Sky Bet League One. Oxford, absolutely rock solid at the Kassam at the moment. It's 3 wins preceded by a draw, so 10 points from 12. There's been some good wins in that period as well, hasn't there, Joe? I've written it down. You've beaten Charlton, you've beaten Crewe, you've beaten Lincoln, not conceding goals at home even. That's obviously given you a good basis to win football matches ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's kind of sums it up really. At the moment, we look quite good at home and can't buy a win away from home. That really has been the theme of our season thus far. Still early stages, of course, but yeah, I mean some good wins in there. Of course, I think Lincoln were ravaged by injuries. Charlton still, I mean, you saw on Tuesday, still not quite perhaps where they would want to be, and Crewe, I think, again similar injury problems, unavailable, not being available. So maybe a little bit. I mean, Oxford at the moment, I think after Saturday, a little bit of a pessimistic mood. But you know, when you look, we're still early days, and as you are right, some home form looking fairly solid at the moment. Still unbeaten at home, I believe. So we're looking quite strong at home, but at the moment it's just so early to tell. We're still getting to know this team, and we're still trying to work out where this season is going at the moment.
That's it, yeah. And I think because despite them good results, I think then you've not won in the last 3 and you've only scored once. So there's been 2 games where you failed to hit the target. And but the thing is, like with Gills, if we've had a poor start by all accounts, that's what everyone's been doom and gloom around the club at the moment for one reason or another that I won't bore you with. But if we'd beaten Charlton Tuesday night, we're 4 points off the playoffs. So it is so early. You put together back-to-back wins and you jump up half a dozen, 10 places. And obviously, if you go 2 or 3 without picking up a win, you find yourselves, well, where we are at the moment, unfortunately, and that's just outside the relegation zone. But I think both teams will finish higher up than where they currently occupy. I think you're sort of mid-table and Gills are languishing near the foot of the table at the moment, but I'm pretty confident both teams will pick up and finish a lot higher up than their current positions. Gills have been a weird one this season. I don't know what you've seen of us. It's probably just highlights, Quest, Sky, that type of thing. But I think looking at just the league games, obviously there's cup games as well, but you don't get... Sorry, 2 seconds. Something's just flashed up. There we go. It's difficult to gauge form, isn't it, when you've got much changed 11s in the Carabao Cup and the EFL Trophy, which most people don't really care about. Unfortunately, it serves a purpose in the sense that it gives those that need minutes, and it sort of, you can bed in the youth players that you think might play a part further down the line, whether that's this season or next season. But the 8 Gills games we've played in the league, it's probably only Wimbledon where we've been poor for the entirety of the game. I mean, literally for 97.5 minutes, we were absolute rubbish. And then we got lucky with an own goal with 10 men to nick a point. And to the point where you're almost apologetic as you walk out the ground. You don't, because you're happy you've earned a point. But like we go back right to the first game of the season. You've played Lincoln. We was probably better than them for a good hour. We went to Plymouth. We was the better side first half, and then injuries caught up with us, and we ran out of legs. Shrewsbury was the same. We took the lead for 45 minutes. We were really good. Then we picked up an injury, had to change things, and it cost us second half. We just didn't get out. Even MK Dons recently on Saturday, we had to play for 65 minutes with 10 men against probably one of the best teams at keeping the ball in the division. And second half for 20 minutes, we really had a go. We went 3-4-2. So we was trying to keep defensively solid, but also trying to give support for Dane Oliver. And there was calls for a penalty that day as well. There was a couple of half chances. We pinned them back. We stopped them playing. And then last night, first half, absolutely appalling. And we all sat in the ground at full time and went, why can't we start like that? Because if we played like that for 90 minutes, we'd have comfortably seen Charlton off last night. But then the flip side is they'd have said if they'd carried on second half like they were first period, they could have beaten us. So it's all ifs and buts. But yeah, I don't think there's been, aside from that Wimbledon game, a league performance where we've been awful for the duration. But unfortunately, we've had so many problems with injuries and COVID right at the start of pre-season that I think, like a lot of clubs, we're just playing catch up and everyone's trying to get fit on the job, so to speak. But what have you made of Gills so far? Because we always like to find out what opposition fans like, because I know everyone loves Steve Evans.
Well, we find ourselves in sort of a similar one, really, with Carl Robinson. Not the biggest fan, not going to win any popularity contest amongst League One, but I think Gillingham are always going to be, with the greatest respect in the world. It's not. If you look at, we played Wickham a couple of weeks ago, and I think you saw a team there that's just incredibly well drilled, well organised, really effective, but maybe not the prettiest football in the world. I think Gillingham maybe fall into that category a little bit. I'm sure you'll tell me maybe differently, but and there's some good technical players and have been in the last few years at Gills that can always catch you out. But a tough team to play against. I know it's kind of a bit of a cliche, but coming into the game against Gillingham, you're going to be in for a battle. That's the way I look at it anyway. And you're going to have to be. We need our physical. I mean, Elliot Moore's been out the last couple of games. We really need him back for Gillingham because he's one of our sort of physical, powerful defenders. You kind of know that you're going to be in for a battle. You know you're going to have to dig deep. And we saw that last season when we played Gillingham. I mean, when we played you at Priestfield, I think we just got caught off guard early doors. We actually looked okay in the game, but I think a bit of naivety cost us. And we had to dig deep in the home game as well. I think we know we're going to be in for a battle. It's going to be a tough game. Steve Evans, you know what you're going to get from him. You're going to get a team that, I mean, Gillingham will finish, they'll be fine this season. Under Steve Evans at this level, you're not going to struggle. Whether you'd want, again, Steve, we don't need to go into what he's about. We all know what he's about, but you're going to get a team that's going to pick up some results, and you're going to be hard to beat, and that's sort of what I see from Gillingham. I mean, I'm keen to see what you bring this season, because it's always interesting. With Steve Evans teams, they're always quite hard to beat and always in for a tough game. I'm expecting more of the same, to be honest. I don't know what you might tell me differently.
No. That's perfectly correct, isn't it? Gills, we tend to we get the ball high up the pitch quickly, and then we play from there. And then if we can get in and around the Dane Oliver or another striker, and then we get our technical players on the ball in the final third, the likes of Carl Dempsey, who's a technician, Ben Reeves is a nice player, Ollie Lee's a nice looking player on the eye. Mustafa Carriel started really well since arriving in the summer, having been on trial, but unfortunately he missed Tuesday night, so I'm not sure whether he's going to be available, because he absolutely terrorised Burton week before last, and then unfortunately he's missed the last two, which that sums up our season so far. It constantly seems to be one step forward and then two steps back. We've had about 4 right backs already, 3 left backs. We started off with a right back at left back on Tuesday night and a centre back at right back because of injuries. We're bringing on kids. We've had kids starting in trophy games because we can't fill benches, and it's just been so inconsistent. And I said this to someone else last season, from sort of January onwards, you knew the Gills side. If everyone was fit, you knew that 11. I laughed and said on the fan hub thing, it was easy to get 11 out of 11 being a Gills fan. Whereas at the moment, if you're getting 7 or 8, you're doing well, because it's tricky, because we keep getting someone's back for a couple of weeks, and then the person that he's recovered recovers, and then he gets injured, and then it's sort of vice versa. And I joked in the ground on Tuesday and said we're probably going to end up playing a whole season with a right back that's 80% fit, because they just keep picking up tweaks. The centre back, Reece Bennett, went off injured Tuesday night, and he's the replacement right back. And the other replacement right back's playing at left back, because the left back that we signed, David Citrone, has not been great so far, bless him. But he put in a good 15 minutes last night when he had to come on, and fingers crossed that settles him down, and he got a good reception from the crowd. But what you've spoken about having to be defensively resolute and solid. and obviously it seems to be an annual thing, a summer thing with Oxford, that you lose a high class centre back every summer.
Yep.
And it was Rob Dickey, Rob Atkinson, that's the two, and you had to replace Atkinson this summer. And Jordan Thornley was the man who's come in, who done well at this level with Blackpool last season. He lost Josh Ruffles, I think, went to the Championship. Was it Huddersfield?
It was, yep.
But I spoke to Gabe Sutton in the summer, and I said I thought that Steve Seddon was potentially an upgrade. I think he's a better left back. I think he offers more going both ways. And that's no disrespect to Josh Ruffles, who I think was a very accomplished fullback at this level. But how have Thornley and Seddon settled in terms of you can't replace a Rob Dickey or Rob Atkinson light for light because they're such good players. And I understand that, but obviously you can try and get as close as damn it. And so how have Thornley and Seddon settled in the first couple of months?
Interesting one. I think both got off to a really good start in the first couple of games. Both earning rave reviews. Seddon especially was really, people were looking at him and thinking, okay, we've got a different dimension now to Josh Ruffles in terms of Steve Seddon is a lot more dynamic, a lot more attacking. Ruffles he's an attacking fullback, but in the sense that he would get on the end of crosses and in set pieces and score a lot of goals and not a bad crosser of the ball, but he's not going to be flying up and down. Steve Seddon's a lot more like that. And Jordan Thornley slotted in really well as well. Another left-footed centre back, which is a bit of a commodity, to get a player, a centre half who's left-footed. But in the last couple of games, both of them we've been brought back to earth a little bit. And I think Jordan Thornley, it was his mistake for the goal at Cheltenham, which ultimately cost us. Defensively, we've not looked particularly settled this season. We've not looked great. I think Seddon is someone who I'm eager to see more of before passing judgment, but I'm a little bit unsure of him at the moment, but that could change in a couple of weeks. So we're still talking about really early days, but the last couple of performances have been brought back down to earth a little bit and saying, actually, well, okay, you're great at getting forward, but is the final delivery good enough, and are you good enough defensively? That's the questions that need answers over the next few weeks and months. Ultimately, Jordan Thornley, really good in the ball, great hitting diagonal balls across the pitch. Is got a good wide range of passing, but is 5'11", and for a centre back, you want somebody a bit more aerially dominant. And these are the things that we're just finding out about these players at the moment. Again, these are things we don't quite know yet, but I think both of them will be, good additions. Neither are going to be, rubbish. We've seen enough from them already that suggests these are going to be two good League One players. But whether Steve Seddon is going to be able to replace Josh Ruffles, and I think we've conceded a lot of set pieces. Josh Ruffles, what he offered defensively from set pieces as well, we've lost. And, Josh Ruffles got a bit of a hard time from Oxford fan, a bit underrated, I always felt. And we're starting to see actually, it's quite nice having a really consistent performer like Josh Ruffles. He may not get too many 9 out of 10s or 10 out of 10 performances, but he's always going to, very rarely going to go below.
Many 5 or 6s, yeah. That's the thing.
Rarely going to go
7 every week, yeah.
Absolutely. And for me, Steve Seddon has chucked in a couple of 5s already, and Atkinson. We always knew Rob Atkinson was going to be really difficult to replace because he's such a unique player, but we're just waiting and see with those two players. I don't want to pass judgment too quickly and say they're amazing.
And that's the same with us, because it's we're 8 games in and it's been a truncated summer still for plenty because COVID is still about, unfortunately. And then if you miss training and you miss games because of that, then you're more likely to pick up injuries and muscle problems. So it is still very early stages, isn't it? And it's same as the league table, like we said, and we're not sitting here writing them off. But just from an outsider's perspective, I thought they were 2 very solid additions when we saw them announced in the summer. And I guess you ultimately decide how good they were after 46 games when you find out where you finish in the table. Because if you're in the top 6 or the top 2, then ultimately they've done their job. And if you miss out on the playoffs, you'd say, well, they've probably not quite come up to scratch because we've been in the playoffs for the last 2 campaigns. So long way to go. The other end of the pitch, though, I think we've got similar issues, both Gillingham and Oxford United at the moment, because I was looking at the goal scorers list, especially just in the league. James Henry's got 4 for Oxford in the league, but 3 of them came in one afternoon. I don't think anyone else has got more than 1 in the league for Oxford.
No, I don't think so.
And Gills, Dane Oliver's got 3 in the league, 4 in all competitions. Again, there's no one else that's got more than 1. I think after Dane Oliver actually own goals is now our second highest scorer after Wimbledon and Tuesday evening. So that's never great. But again, it's early stages. But I just wanted to touch on how concerned are you? Because you look at your squad, you've got Sam Winnells, you've got Matty Taylors, you've got Dan Ajayi as well. And it seems that, similar to us, there's a lot of your flair players just haven't quite hit the ground running yet and are not really performing at the levels where they certainly got to last season and certainly, where they can get to again.
Absolutely. I think it is a bit concerning at the moment. The difference between, because we had this problem last season where I think Gillingham was the prime example. We played at Priestfield, we had a ton of chances, couldn't finish them, and we're like, well, what's going on? We're not scoring enough goals, but at least the chances were being created. That's the key thing. The key thing is at least the chances there to be missed. And when you've got players like Matty Taylor and James Henry, you've got people who've got proven track record scoring goals. You think, well, it's going to click eventually. This season, over the last couple of games, we haven't really created much, and that's been a bit more concerning in that regard. I mean, Matty Taylor's really, really struggled. I feel for the bloke, because I think there was a stat. I nicked this off Oxford Analytics on Twitter, but he said that Matty Taylor hasn't had a touch since the 34th minute of the Wimbledon match, which was like 2 games ago. A touch in the box. It's
if it's in a touch full stop, I think
touch in the box. He's
not
been quite that
anyway. Still,
it's not been quite that desperate, but yeah, touch in the box. Sorry. Which just sums up the problem. He's coming deep. He's not really a hold-up player, so he's having to do things. And I think it's also a question of we're asking too much of him, and it's easy to, because he hasn't scored a goal yet. I don't think it's easy to have a go at the striker when they haven't scored. But how many chances? He's not getting any chances. He's not missing chances. It's not as if he's missing open goals. He's missing chances. He's not getting the chances, and that's what the key thing at the moment is. We've got to feed him chances. If we start doing that, he'll score goals. He's proven that over his career. He's not suddenly turned into a poor finisher overnight. He's going to score goals, but we're not getting the ball into him at the moment. That's the key issue. I think we'll improve in that respect, because we've seen where we need to improve. And Carl Robinson, in credit to him, we can have a go at the slow starts we've had in seasons and previous years, but he is quite good at sort of over the course of the season fixing the problems. This time last season we would have been talking about not scoring enough goals, etc., etc. By the end of the season, we're banging in 2 or 3 a game. It does take time. My concern is that maybe last season we were just missing chances. We were having a lot of chances of missing them. This season, are we actually creating them? And that's the thing that we've got to start getting better at. And I think that has to be the wide players that have to, click. Those that's the key. Gavin White so far was kind of the fanfare signing. We're yet to see what we saw from him in his first loan spell. Nathan Holland, exactly the same. It's been pretty poor so far. So we have to see more from them. We have to see more productivity from the team at the moment, rather than good finishing. I'm confident if we can create chances, we've got the players in the team to score goals, pretty much from midfield and up front. Brannigan, Henry will score from midfield. Taylor will score. I'm confident of that. But
that's it, because if you looked at Oxford squad as an outsider, as an opposition fan, and you looked at it on paper and you went, that's certainly not a squad that's not going to play well, that's not going to play the right way, and it's not going to create bundles of chances, because there's plenty of flair players in there and technically good players as well. So it's fingers crossed it lasts for about another 72 hours, and then you can go and do what you like for 6 months until you play us at Priestfield again. Right, team news then. I know it's a bit early in the week, because I know this is going out on a Thursday, but it is being recorded on a Wednesday evening, just to confuse the viewers. So there is no official team news out. There's not been any press conferences from Gillingham or Oxford United as yet on Twitter and their social media feeds. But I'll do the Gills one quickly, the team news. Obviously, Stuart O'Keefe will return from suspension, having missed Tuesday night after his ridiculous red card last weekend. Daniel Phillips looks to be out for a while. Apparently, he's been spotted around the ground sporting an air boot. And Ryan Jackson, Mustafa Carriel, we're not sure. I'd imagine they're probably 50-50 or 40-60 in terms of being available for the weekend. And that's probably where we've had a slightly different problem to you. We've had players that are meant to be creating and have actually played well in patches, but they play well and then they get injured and then they miss 2. And that's where this whole 1 step forward and 2 steps back thing comes from at the moment. So Gills' team for me, before we let you do yours, Joe, after seeing the second half Tuesday evening, I would go with the team that ended the game, aside from one change. So I'd go with a back 4 of Jamie Cumming, Reece Bennett, Max Amar, Jack Tucker and Robbie McKenzie. I would take Ollie Lee out. I didn't think he was great Tuesday night. I don't think he's a holding midfielder. I think Evans sort of gambled a little bit Tuesday and played him as like a quarterback playmaker from deep. But I'd put Stuart O'Keefe in there. I'd have Carl Dempsey and Alex McDonald either side. For Dane Oliver through the middle, and then I'd play Danny Lloyd and Gerald Citrone as wingers because they both came on at half-time Tuesday night and absolutely changed the pattern of the game. There was more impetus, there was more drive, there was more willingness to get on the ball and run at defenders and make stuff happen, and we looked a completely different team. Obviously, if Mustafa Carriol's fit, then he has to start, and I'd probably take Gerald Citrone out of the team purely because he's a kid. And if Ryan Jackson's fit, I'd probably put him on the bench. So then you'd have to take a couple out. But as it stands, it'd be Aaron Chapman, David Tutonda, Bailey Akehurst, Oliver Lee, Ben Reeves, Daniel Adseed, and John Akindi on our substitutes bench. Team news for yourself. I know you've already mentioned Elliot Moore. Is there any other people that are suspended or struggling with injury? Still there, Joe? Apologies about this, Gills fans. We seem to have lost the connection. Let's see if we can get him back. Think we might have regained the connection. Let's just hope and pray that Joe's coming back. He's there again. I don't know how much you caught with that, Joe.
Sorry, mate. My internet went down. I do apologise.
At all. I don't know how much you got. Well, I did the team news for Gills and the starting 11, obviously, so it's nothing that you needed to hear in terms of it's not going to affect our your team. So let's try and get through your team news then, and obviously your predicted 11.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Do you want me to? Sorry, I'm a bit out of the. What, did you sort of introduce me or what?
Yeah, I've been sorry. I apologise because obviously we lost connection, so it's just carried on recording. So we can just carry on from where we left off. So if you can go through your team news and
okay.
predicted 11.
Yeah. So from an Oxford point of view, I think we had a few players missing in the last game. I think in particular Cameron Brannigan was out of the team, which is, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that taking him out of the Oxford team is weakening us significantly. Hopefully he'll be back. I think it was only a knock that forced him out of the team, so hopefully he'll be back. And we've got a few players back into training actually. I think Marcus McGuane is back training. I think Sam Whittle is back training. And I think we're on the cusp of bringing a few players back into the fray. There has to be changes from the last game because that was probably our poorest performance of the season at Cheltenham. Hopefully Cameron Brannigan will come back into that midfield. That will make a huge difference from my point of view. There's not much else we can do. I think Mark Sykes on the right is difficult to drop at the moment. He's probably been one of our best players so far this season. Gavin White on the left is probably at risk because he's not been particularly good. But at the same time, the replacement's Nathan Holland, who you can't really say has been particularly great so far either. So I think we'll see something. I don't think we'll see too many changes, but it's about a change in tact and change in tactics. I think Alex Gorin has to sit in that midfield, and then possibly Brannigan and Henry in front of him. You might see a change on the left. You might see Nathan Holland come into the team instead of Gavin White, or you might see Gavin White go onto the right, possibly Mark Sykes move into midfield. But I think what we have to do is make sure we go in with a bit more of a plan than we did against Cheltenham, because we looked naive tactically in that game. We looked, I think Robertson was sort of outthought really by Michael Duff, and we have to make sure that's improved. Personnel wise, I don't think we'll see a raft of changes. I think Brannigan coming back in is going to be massive, but we have to play a lot better than we did against Cheltenham, put it that way. But I think at the bench we might see a few more people come onto the bench. Whittle and McGuane might come onto the bench and offer a few more options there.
Yeah, that sums up pretty well then. So fingers crossed on your behalf, obviously, but from our point of view, hopefully they all fail fitness tests. Right, the ultimate question before I let you go and enjoy your evening is obviously score prediction.
It's difficult. I can't be as much as I feel pessimistic right now on the back of Saturday's result. I've got to back my team, I suppose. I think if we play as well as we can play, I think we've got it in us to get a result. The issue is at the moment, we haven't seen that in a few games now. A really good Oxford performance. Probably been since Charlton since we've seen a good performance. If we can produce a performance at that level, we give ourselves a really good chance. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet at the moment. I'd probably go 2-1 to Oxford, but that is me being very positive based on Saturday, because I don't think there'll be too many people feeling too great on the back of that performance. But yeah, I'll go 2-1 Oxford.
It's fair enough. Obviously, you have to back your own team. I'm going to sit on the fence purely on the basis that we never seem to win at Oxford. I don't think we've won there for about 11 years. Even when we was very good last season for 75, 76 minutes, we still contrived to lose 3-2. Maybe you should play Sam Long up front. I don't know. But on the fact that you've struggled in the last three, you're struggling to create chances, you're struggling to convert chances. You said you don't think you'll keep a clean sheet. I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. We've not had one in the league yet. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, which I don't think would represent a bad result on the road for Gills. I know we need to start winning games quickly, but I don't think a draw away to Oxford would be a disaster. So I'm going to go 1-1, and I'm going to back for Dane Oliver to score our goal.
Wow, I think a draw wouldn't be too bad for us either based on Saturday.
Yeah. We shall see. One of us probably will be smiling and one of us not so much come 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Joe, it's been a real pleasure. Apologies to people watching for the slight mishap with the internet connection. It happens, unfortunately, when we're recording live, but it doesn't take anything away from the knowledge and the inside information regarding Oxford that Joe's managed to provide for all of us Gills fans. Like I say, I'll put all his details in the description at the end of this video. Don't forget to keep checking us out. You know where we are. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, and we are on Twitter. Please keep following the Third Tier podcast. We will return next Monday. But until next time, it is nearly the weekend. Up the Gills.